Boys and girls, I promised you that I would make another video to help you divide four-digit numbers by one-digit divisors. So I'm going to give you 4,137, and we're going to divide it by 3. Our strategy is still to first make a hashtag with our multiples of 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, and 27. These are our multiples of 3. The first step is to look at the first digit in the dividend and divide it by the divisor. 4 divided by 3. In other words, how many times can 3 go into 4 without going over? So when I look at my multiples of 3, the closest I can get to 4 is the number 3. Because if I go to 6, then 6 it goes over. It goes over 4. So 3 is the closest we can get to 4, and that only takes us one time of counting by 3 to get there. So I'm going to put a 1. So 4 divided by 3 equals 1. And so that's the first step in that we need to take in our process of dividing. So our process is to divide, then to multiply, then to subtract, then to bring down, and then repeat as needed. So my next step is to multiply. So I'm going to multiply the 1 that I just wrote down in my quotient times 3, and that equals 3. My next step is to subtract those. 4 minus 3 equals 1. The next step is to bring down the next digit in your dividend. So the next digit is a 1. A 1, so I'm going to bring that down, and I now have created a new number 11. So once you make your new number, you start back up at the top and divide again. 11 divided by 3. Well, how many times can 3 go into 11 without going over? So when I look at my multiples, I notice that the closest I can get to 11 is 9 before it goes over. And that takes me 1, 2, 3 times to get to 9. So I write a 3 above the 1. Okay, so that's my dividing. Now I'm going to multiply the 3 I just wrote down in the quotient with the divisor. 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, then my next step is to subtract those two numbers. 11 minus 9 is 2. Then my next step is to bring down the next digit in the dividend. Well, I have a 3, so I'm going to bring down my 3. And now I have made a new number. I've made 23. So now that means we start back up at the top, dividing again. So 23 divided by 3. I look at my multiples. 3 can go into 23 without going over. Here, at 21, that's the closest we can get to 23 without going over. And that takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So I write my 7 down in my quotient. My next step is to multiply those numbers. So I just wrote down a 7 in my quotient, multiplied by the divisor, which is a 3, and that's 21. Okay. The next step is to subtract those two. So when I subtract those two, I get 2. The next step is to bring down the next digit in my dividend. Well, my next digit is a 7. Bring that all the way down. And now I have a new number 27. And that means we start at the top again. Once you bring down, you start up over dividing. So 27 divided by 3. We need to find out how many times 3 can go into 27. So when I look at my multiples of 3, I notice that we can land exactly on 27 right here. And that takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. So I write a 9 here. So I just divided. Now I need to multiply. I wrote down the last digit I wrote down in my quotient is a 9. So I multiply that with the divisor. 9 times 3. And that's 27. So once I do that, the next step is to subtract those two numbers. And when I subtract those, I get 0. And so bring down, I have no other digits to bring down. I have nothing left when I subtract, so that means I have no remainder at all. And then our quotient, or the answer when we divide, is going to be 1,379. Okay? All right, let's look at one more example. If I give you, let's say I give you 2,143, and I want you to divide by, let's say, 4. I always start off by doing my multiples of 4 in a hashtag form. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, and 36. And I'm going to write down my steps. Divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. Okay, So our steps are to divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. So the first thing you're always going to do is take the first digit in your dividend and divide it by the divisor. So 2 divided by 4. But that's a problem because the number 2 is smaller than 4. I can't make any groups of 4 if I only have 2. So if you only have 2 fingers, I can't make any groups of 4. I only have 2. So that means we can't do 2 divided by 4. So then your job would be to now look at the first 2 digits and divide the first 2 digits by 4. So that's a 21. So I know we can do that. So let's divide 21 divided by 4. So let's look at our multiples of 4. And let's figure out how many times 4 can go into 21. So I noticed the closest we can get to 21 is 20. And that takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So I write a 5 down in my quotient. Notice I wrote my 5 above my 1 because we were dividing 21 divided by 4, not 2 divided by 4. So since we couldn't do 2 divided by 4 because the 2 is too small, you wouldn't write the answer above the 2. Okay, so the next step is to multiply. 5 times 4 is 20. The next step is to subtract. 21 minus 20 is 1. The next step is to bring down. You bring down your 4. Okay, once you bring down your next number in your dividend, you start back over at the divide. So 14 is our new number. We divide that by 4. How many times can 4 go into 12? Well, when I look at my multiples, the closest I can get to 14 is 12 without going over 14. And that takes me 1, 2, 3 times. So I write my 3 above the 4. So that's my dividing. Now I need to multiply. I just wrote down a 3 in the quotient. I multiply that by the divisor, which is 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. Now I'm going to subtract those 2, which is 2. Then I'm going to bring down the next digit in my dividend, which is a 3. And I've made a new number. I have made 23, which means we start back up at the top and divide again. 23 divided by 4. 4, or how many times can 4 go into 23? When I look at my multiples, the closest I can get to 23 is 20. And that takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So I write a 5 here. Now I'm going to multiply. I just wrote down a 5. I multiply it by the divisor. 5 times 4 is 20. Then I subtract those two numbers, 23 minus 20, and I get 3. Bring down. I don't have any other digits in my dividend to bring down. I have 3 remaining. So the 3 that I have left is my remainder. So my answer is going to be 535 with a remainder of 3. Okay, so I hope this helps you. If I'm going too fast, just always stop the video. Just pause it, do a little bit of work, watch a little bit more, pause it again, do a little bit more work, pause it again, and so on and so forth. Good luck.